After the shockingly narrow win against an accused child molester and altogether garbage human being, Roy Moore, corporate Democrats have predictably seized upon this victory as proof that centrism is ascendant. The first example I have is soon-to-be ex-senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, who is being primaried by Paula Jean Swearingen. You should probably check her out. Now, on CNN, he decided to say this about the Doug Jones race. Let's watch.
But what's your reaction to the Doug Jones win in Alabama last night, the Democrats?
Well, I just think it speaks volumes for what we call the radical middle, those of us still in the moderate middle, centrist Democrats. And for Doug to coming from Alabama is going to be a big plus, be able to work in that middle. But I just told Doug to be an Alabama Democrat. Don't have to be a Washington Democrat. Whatever you do, make sure Alabama's first and foremost on your mind. If you can go home and explain it, you can go home and vote for it. If you can go home and explain it and tell them what it's about, no matter whether it's a Democrat idea or Richard Shelby, your co-worker, has a good idea. If it's a Republican idea that works good for Alabama, do it.
Hey, if it's a Republican idea, if it works good for Alabama, that's great. Translation: if it works good for your donors in Alabama, absolutely do it. That's exactly what I'm doing in West Virginia. If it works great for my donors, I absolutely do it. Because I work for the coal companies. In the case of Manchin, I don't know who Doug Jones works for, but I have a feeling that we're going to eventually find out. So, but the overall point of this, of what Joe Manchin is saying, is like, hey man, look, we barely beat a pedophile. Centrism is back, baby. Here we come. Here come the centrists. Wow. Not only are they celebrating a 1.5% win over somebody who's a horrific piece of garbage, but now they're touting this as some sort of validation of basically corporatism. Amazing. Amazing. Now, in doing so, they're actually ignoring the real reasons that Doug Jones actually won. Now, look, it's not because Doug Jones ran on great policy. He didn't run on policy at all. He ran on, hey, Doug Jones, or I'm sorry, Roy Moore is a disgusting human being. Don't vote for him. Vote for your conscience. Don't vote for a pedophile. So now the other reason that Doug Jones actually won is because of the massive get out the vote, thanks to the African-American community. African-American voters waited sometimes hours with various forms of ID in order to beat GOP voter suppression tactics. And so they were absolutely instrumental in Doug Jones's win. Why? Because, well, again, it's not because Doug Jones had great policies for the African-American community. It's because Roy Moore was a horrendous person and a racist, an alleged rapist as well, or attempted rapist. So this is something that the African-American community could not abide. And so a lot of their work, this grassroots activism, this get out the vote, is attributable to them, not to the DNC, not to people like Joe Manchin, and certainly not to centrism. Okay? Now, I'm not done. Here's I now have a quote here from the king of centrist Twitter, the one and only Peter Dow. Hashtag free Peter douche. He also weighed in, quote, let Doug Jones's incredible victory be a message to those attacking the Democratic Party from the fringe left. Join the party, respect its diverse base, and stop trying to sabotage it. We can defeat the radical right. Join us. He then added, we will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. You will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile. Okay, he didn't actually say that, but you get the message. These guys are like the Borg, right? Except that they're these guys are actually the fringe. Peter Dow, talking about fringe left, he actually is the fringe. Most of the Democratic Party, again, agrees with progressive ideas, and Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. So I don't know what fringe he's talking about. He is the fringe. Centrism is the fringe in America now. So, but anyway, now look, I love, he's like, you need to respect the diverse base. Again, progressives have a coalition of everybody. Progressives are the base. So you're not the one who's respecting the diverse base. You represent the hate percent, the 8% of people who despise Bernie Sanders and progressive ideas inside the Democratic Party. You do not represent the party. You are not an arbiter of the party. What you do, what you are, and what you represent is the elite. And you protect them. That's what you do. Again, Peter Dow does not represent the Democratic Party. He represents the Democratic elite, not the grassroots. Again, the grassroots, those are the people that led Doug Jones to victory. So, anyway. Now, I can't believe he said incredible victory. Look, I understand. It is kind of a big deal when you win in some places like Alabama, right? Which is a Republican stronghold. It's a very, very deep red state. And I'm not going to minimize that. But Jones, again, he ran a decent campaign, even though he wasn't all that exciting. I get all that, right? But he won by 1.5% over an alleged pedophile. If Roy Moore hadn't been half as bad, he would not have won Doug Jones. If they had ran Luther Strange, who was your establishment Republican, when you pit establishment versus establishment, well then, the establishment Republican, usually ends up winning in these areas. So, in this case, Doug Jones was lucky. He's not the rule, he's the exception to the rule. He won in a place because his opponent was so odious and such a garbage human being. Now, that 1.5%, I'm sorry, that is not an incredible victory. And look, again, Jones, I don't have anything against him. He's just a standard Democratic politician, right? And don't get me wrong, he did prosecute the KKK, which is awesome. I love that. But that's about the only thing that gets me excited about Doug Jones. He's not for Medicare for all on policy positions. He's not with things that are popular even among conservatives, right? And there are progressive positions that are incredibly popular among conservatives. For example, again, Medicare for all. That's the basic one. Because even Republicans are like, yeah, no, it makes sense to have healthcare for everybody. Oh, and we can get it cheaper than the insurance companies? Because right now, I'm getting ripped off. Okay. So we've got a solution to that. It's called Medicare for all. You like Medicare? Yes, we do. 70% of Americans, or 77% of Americans, love Medicare. And so the logical extension is just to allow everybody to have Medicare. And that's an idea that I think a lot of even conservatives in deep red Alabama can get along, can get around. So, and they can get behind, I should say. And look, Alabama is suffering crippling poverty. And the ACA, which was a step in the right direction, actually did a lot to help people in Alabama. It reduced the uninsured rate by a ton. It was a massive success there. So, if you can make the case about these progressive policies, then I think they'll actually do really well and have somebody who's willing to stand up and promote those progressive policies. That guy is not Doug Jones. He's likely to not be super progressive on many issues. And look, that's fine. That's who he is, right? It's not really about him. It's about centrist Democrats trying to paint this as some sort of gigantic win for corporate Democrats, right? It's disingenuous, and again, ignores the efforts by the grassroots. This is about the DNC. This is about Peter Dow. This is about Joe Manchin. It's about, head of the DNC, Tom Perez. I'm getting emails from him. Oh my God, our massive victory in Alabama. What did you do, Tom Perez? You didn't do anything. So it's about them jumping on this win as if it proves their message is right, that we must run to the center if we're going to win. Every place is different. Not everybody will respond greatly to progressive ideas. I understand that. I'm under no illusion that you could just immediately run a Bernie-crat and win everywhere. No, you actually have to have a strong campaign with a strong message. But I do believe that progressive priorities are popular among the country, especially if you focus on things that are going to make people's lives better. For example, making healthcare cheaper, more affordable, right? And you can do that with Medicare for all. Or, making sure that people end up getting more money, raising wages, things like that. Or just dealing with certain problems. I think there was one progressive candidate that focused mainly on fixing potholes. I don't know how he did it, but that made him super popular in a Republican district. And he's a progressive. So it's possible that progressives can win everywhere. And in fact, what Manchin says, what Dow says, ignores all the other progressive wins that they've racked up, that we've racked up. They conveniently ignore them. Like, for example, the Democratic Socialists of America increasing their seat count by 75%. Now, that's 15 seats overall. It might not seem like much, but it's actually a pretty big deal since these are Democratic Socialists. You also have open socialists that have won seats in Georgia, Virginia, and Illinois. And the Virginia race was a huge, huge win for Democratic Socialists all over America. So, look, they ignore that because that doesn't fit with their "we must run to the center" message. And see, that's what's wrong with the corporate ring of the Democratic Party. Not only do they ignore these progressive wins, but they also focus too much on national races. And when they actually do pay attention to these races, they learn the absolute wrong lesson from them.